bed. It's just after Christmas weekend, and welcome to our conversation about marriage. My name is Henrietta Savati, and I'm a co-founder of the Barefoot Institute.
I'm glad you said that.
Why?
I always forget to say it. And my name is Ajmal Masroor. It's early morning, but I've been awake for a little while. You've been awake longer.
Yeah, I woke up very early this morning actually, but not as early as yesterday. Yesterday I was doing the duck, so that took me a long time to prepare.
Oh yes, we had duck for dinner.
It was a very nice duck actually.
It was not Christmas dinner.
It wasn't Christmas dinner, but it's part of our intercultural exchange. I'm Hungarian by birth, so we do duck around the end of the year celebration, and my mother makes an amazing duck, and I picked up the recipe from her a couple of years ago, and I made duck.
Well, in Hungary, believe it or not, they celebrate. My mother-in-law, who is not a Muslim, she celebrates Christmas, and the food of Hungarian culture is Christmas food is fish soup.
Usually it is, yes, like the Polish and similar to Eastern European.
So very close to the Bengali culture there. So I was missing my fish, but I've got to tell you the truth. You didn't make the fish.
No, I didn't. I don't know how to make the fish soup. So any Hungarian listening, watching, give us some recipes. My mother gave me the recipe many, many times, but I still don't know how to make it. Anyway, we are talking about intercultural marriages. So these are the kind of conversations we have on a regular basis about food. One of the things that we find quite difficult to manage in our family is what type of cuisine we follow. What do we eat? How do we make sure that everyone is happy in the family? So we've got two children who are teenagers, and they carry Hungarian and Bengali genes in their blood. So
whatever
they are
that
truly
means.
Multicultural. But we talk about food all the time and what we should be eating, what's the staple diet, and it's a constant conversation in our house.
So, a lot of people are not sure about what to do. And I look, Hannah, let's cut to the chase. Allah in the Quran is very vivid about why He has created human beings in tribes and nations and in different color. And I've already talked about it before, but I'm just looking for the verse. I don't want to misquote it. The verse is often quoted by scholars from all over the world whenever they talk about how He has created all of us in different tribes and nations. Here is the verse. Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa unsa وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. All human beings, behold, we have created you out of a male and a female. And I have made you into tribes and nations, so that you might come to know each other. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is the one who is most deeply Allah conscious. Behold, Allah is all knowing and all aware. What does it say to you, this verse?
It's always puzzles me this verse, even though we have spoken about this so many times. It's a living reality, but I think I'm getting a little bit closer to the understanding that it's about the essence of this message is how, regardless of where you are born, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what you eat, regardless of what language you speak, at the essence of it, we are all the same. We are cut out from the same cloth, and every human being is the same, essentially.
So when we got married, though I was darker than you, I still am.
You're actually getting darker.
You have not been able to make me any lighter
as the years go.
That's life, right? And when I got married to you, what I found about you and what you found about me, was there a surprise for you in the nature and the differences that we both bring?
In essence, no. And I think I just laugh when I think about my grandmother. When I told her that I'm getting married to you, and she said, "Where is this man from?" And I said, "He's from Bangladesh." The first question she asks is, "How dark is he?" So no, in essence,
she had not met any black person before.
Yeah, but then after meeting you, obviously she has changed her mind, and she was cooking wonderful food for you. So in essence,
something to do with me being charming to her.
Of course. You and your smiles. But no, in essence, I don't think we are able to see people in their essence very often. We are stuck with the
And that's the
superficiality of who
problem.
we are.
Yeah.
And I think this is what this verse is reminding me of. That go for the essence, go for the soul of the person. Don't look at what's on the outside.
Look at the way Allah has put it together. Ya ayyuhan nas. All humanity, He's addressing everybody, not just Muslims. He's talking about everybody. Brothers and sisters, this is a generic advice and an address by Allah. Every single being Allah is talking about, oh humanity, ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum, surely we have made you. So first recognition is, I have made you, the whole of humanity. So it doesn't matter whether you're poor, you're rich, you're black, you're white, you're Caucasian, you're Asian, you're Chinese, you're African, you're Mongolian, American, I've lost names of the countries or continents for that matter. You're all the creations of Allah. If you understand that part, you will never look at the other person as some sort of an alien. I hate that term alien when I go to America.
Why?
Because they call foreigners aliens. I really hate it because that's a very discriminatory term. That's a very racist term in my view. We're not aliens. We're all the same human race. So that's the verse. Allah has said that He has created all of us and He is addressing all of us. I have created you. Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa unsa, from one man and one woman. So like you said, the same cloth, we have cut out from the same cloth, same genetic makeup or same human gene that we all carry, human gene that we're talking about. And that's what Allah is saying. And then He says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ, but we have made you, apparently, in شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلٍ, in nations and tribes. Why?
So that you get to know.
لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you build relationships with one another. That's what the arafa means. Ladies and gentlemen, when Allah talks about لِتَعَارَفُوا, Allah is talking about how we create relationship between one another despite our differences.
Let's just say salam to some of our
Okay, hold on a second. Let's go back to the page.
viewers as well.
Lots of people have called. You read it today.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for coming to join us. Arshid Minhaj, yes, you want to eat the food.
No, you can't. You will have to
Salams for
bring your own
Jamal,
food.
Ibrahim, we have got lots of people watching us today. So
Lovely
please.
Nasrin is here. Ibrahim ibn Mia is here. Salam to both of you.
Oh, from Germany, we have got someone from Germany. Welcome.
We have to read the whole thing. Salamu alaikum from Germany, from Jamal Chargai. Sweetie Pie says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nice to see you both. Isan Osman says, Assalamu alaikum. Shamim Zafar says, Salam. Sweetie Pie, I was late connecting. Couldn't find the link on the Facebook from Jama. So sorry. Welcome. You've come back. Come to us. Shishu Mia says, Assalamu alaikum. Halima says, a love heart. And Zahnina says salam. Wa alaikum assalam to you all.
Walaikum salam. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about intercultural marriages.
But we are starting with an introduction. The introduction is very important with this verse of the Quran. That we are all creations of Allah. And we are all creation, we all come from Adam and Eve, the same origin. And the purpose of Allah creating us in different colors and nations is so that we will get to know each other. Build relationship. Build relationship.
And I think that's the challenging bit. That's the hard bit. Recognizing and knowing that we are all created and in the same way and we are all the same. It's fairly easy in theory, right? But it's really about down to the nitty-gritty of how do we build relationship? How do we understand each other? And look at what's happening in the world. You know, diversity has opened up. The idea of diversity, particularly in places like London, in America, where there are lots of different cultures live together, like in a melting pot, they call it. Understanding that
Somebody asked me
daily basis.
Somebody asked me the other day, where did Adam come? Which country did he land in? And where did Hawa land? Because they were separated. According to historians, no evidence for this, but historians have said this, that Hawa landed in the Mediterranean area.
Right.
And Adam landed in the Indian subcontinent. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what color was Adam and what color was Hawa? Allah doesn't talk about it in the Quran because in Islam, color is not important. What language did they speak? We assume they spoke Arabic. We assume Allah knows the best. We don't know. They communicated because Allah gave them a language to speak. But you know, our color and our culture has evolved over time. So now that I live in the UK and I've lived here all my life, the melanin on my skin has reduced. Now when I go to the sun, I get burned very easily. So over time, in 3-4 generations, there is no reason why our children will retain the darkness of their skin pigmentation because there is no melanin content as high as it would be in Africa or Asia.
Unless we move to a really nice warm country where we can,
Unless that's true
we can
too.
contribute to the brownness of our children.
And if you lived in you're from Western Hemisphere, if your skin was dark, it would get cold very easily. So Allah has given you an environment in which your skin has adapted and evolved over time so that it suits the environment around. And that's the beauty of the nations and tribes Allah talks about. And then He says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best amongst you is not the one who's black or white, who is African or Asian or American or British or European. No, none of that. Or Arab, no. The best amongst you is the one who is most Allah conscious. Subhanallah. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And then He finishes by saying, Inna Allah aliman khabira. Allah is most knowing and aware of everything that you do. So if you start from that particular space, intercultural marriages become easier because you've accepted your partner as your equal. You've accepted your partner as a human being like you, created by Allah in the best of fashion. You've accepted your partner as a partner who you need to get to know more because of their cultural diversity.
I want to bring in something interesting that I get a lot of requests, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit later on. There is this obsession with intercultural marriages for some communities. People are looking for the opposite of their own culture. They are looking for a particular skin color. They are looking for a particular type of personality.
I get lots of people telling me, can you please find me a revert for my son?
Yeah.
Or a revert for my daughter. Why revert? Oh, they will not be carrying their cultural baggage.
Yeah, so I think we need to talk about this a little bit before we go into the details of it, because there is this mindset of being intercultural marriage being somewhat exotic. Someone is going to save us from other things. And I remember when I was getting married, my mother said to me, you know, this is coming with a lot of problems with this intercultural marriage, and how are you going to manage? And I said, look, Mom, I believe I would have the same problem if I was marrying a Hungarian man. So the problems are not going to be going away or being more because I'm marrying a different culture. The problem isn't that. The problem is, how do you manage as two human beings?
We're all human beings.
Exactly.
We all have problems.
But why do we as people have an obsession about marrying someone other than our own culture?
Do you know why? Because they think, okay, if I'm going to get married to someone white, they will not have parents and extended family, so I don't have to worry about the in-laws. I think that's a rotten way of thinking it. Really sorry to say this. It's a rotten way of thinking it. You know why I use the word rotten? It's because every one of us have come with parents and we have extended families. Are you thinking that you're going to get married and start afresh with somebody on an island unto yourself with nobody else around you? That's the most selfish thing you can ever think of. Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Why would you think like that? What would you do if your children behaved in the same way when they grew up? I don't want to know my parents. I don't want to know your parents. Get lost. That would be the most horrible thing to encounter. So the idea that you don't have to deal with in-laws or extended families on its own is a rotten thinking.
So running away from our own culture into another marriage with for someone from a different background isn't going to take away your own misunderstanding about your own culture.
And that person will come with their culture.
Exactly. So we need to understand that when I'm running towards something, I'm also running away from something else. So we need to understand, what am I running away from? I never particularly, thought about what kind of culture I'm going to marry into. I knew that I will not be marrying a Hungarian. That was the only thing I was quite sure about, because I knew I will not be living in Hungary.
But you're pluralistic enough in your attitude and mind that you picked up Bengali, Sylheti very quickly to be able to have a conversation with my mother by your own interest and your own motivation. I didn't have to tell you to do this. I never ever told you to learn Bengali in my life.
No, I used to have this little dictionary, you remember?
You used to have your own, and you used to have that conversation with my mum. I used to laugh at it because you used to speak in some words that are so village-like, I don't even like them, because she was learning them from my mother and my cultural families. And I wouldn't have taught her Sylheti Bengali. I would have taught her proper Bengali, but I didn't, because I didn't want to impose on her another language. She could speak in English to me, not a problem. But you did. The humanity within you was that you didn't have a problem with it.
Nah, I'm not problem.
There you go. Yeah. So for the Bengalis out there, just let me put it to you. It's not the in-laws that you're trying to escape. You're trying to escape your own problems. And your own problems you think you've escaped? Tell me. Or the Asians out there, you can't escape your own problems, because when I got married, I also found a mother-in-law was no different to any other mother-in-laws that I've seen in other family members or in my other families that who I've seen get married. So a Bangladeshi mother-in-law, an Arab mother-in-law, and a Hungarian mother-in-law, what's common between all three? Go on, you tell me.
I don't know.
They will all want to feed their son-in-law until their son-in-law is fat and ugly.
That's true.
Take the word ugly away. Every time I went to my mother-in-law's house, she would cook 1, 2, 3, 4 dishes every few minutes. Have you eaten? Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? No different to my mum when she does to my brother-in-laws. I've seen it.
True.
So it doesn't matter which culture you come from. I had a fantastic relationship with your father, my father-in-law, just like my father would be, her father was the same. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, my brother, your brother, my sisters, you don't have a sister. I'm saying all of these baggage that you are trying to escape, they're all the same. If you've got problems with your family that you need to deal with, escaping into another family is not going to sort out your family problems, will it?
Yeah, because the problem isn't the family, isn't the culture. The problem is within the family. Every relationship, regardless of background, comes with pluses and minuses, and we need to be okay with this. We need to be comfortable. We can't just have a expectation and a high fantasy around exotic lands of traveling and escaping from our own culture. You are taking something else. So when you're running towards something, think about first, what are you running away from? So
I've got lots of messages again. Rezi, our good friend, has said, Assalamu alaikum to both. Managed to wake up to listen to you both. Oh, Rezi, come on. That's 10 o'clock. You should be awake from 6 o'clock in the morning. Rizi Muhammad, salam from Glasgow. Alaikum assalam. Sajadur Rahman says, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Farida says, salam. Sweetie Pie, beautiful topic from today. Oh, Jana, you have
Jana recommended us.
She has, mashallah.
Thank you, Jana.
May Allah bless you all.
From
Shanzida
Bangladesh.
Sultana. Somebody is joining us from Bangladesh. Thank you, welcome. Who is that? Raihan Juel. Anyway, Shanjid the Sultana says, Assalamu alaikum from Ahsan and family. I have a question. Is there any harm if I give any of my friends a Christmas card or wishes? No. Anyone who says there is, they have a particular mindset. I respect that, but I have no issue in you giving your non-Muslim friends a Christmas greeting, because we would expect that from our non-Muslim friends to give us Eid greetings. Why not give it to them as well? Of course, as Muslims, we don't celebrate it, so don't give it to a Muslim. Give it to non-Muslim neighbors. We gave our non-Muslim neighbor yesterday a whole plate full of duck and food that we cooked, and we told her we're wishing you all the best. They gave us sweets. Now, the neighbor every Christmas gives us a massive bouquet of a box of Christmas goodies, but she doesn't celebrate it until January, so we still have to expect.
So we have to do that.
Yes. Halima Sadia says, Assalamu alaikum. I just
discovered this fabulous live feed. This is a subject that I have been discussing last night with my children, who I would like to see married soon, but there are so many cultural boundaries that our elders have lived by and expect us to live by as well. My mind starts racing when I think of all the battles I might face if my children married into a different culture. Well, let's talk about this. So what?
Hold on, just quickly, a couple of messages. MashaAllah, I want to hear more Bangla words. Very good from you. I like the Bangla bit, alhamdulillah. Sister Henrietta speaks well Bengali, of course. Alison, Assalamu alaikum. Differences in educational level can certainly be a big issue in a relationship. Mahbub Hussein says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa alaikum assalam. Jamal Chargai, the problem is not
the men or women. The problem are the families and traditions. So let's talk about that too. So we've got a couple of interesting questions coming.
And then salam to both of you from Iman. I like reading messages because people like acknowledgement. Abdul Muhid Ali says, Assalamu alaikum, brother and sister. Is this live? Yes. If so, great to see you both. Great Bangla from sister, amazing. Can't get my kids to even talk Silati. Any tips? You have to accommodate and respect each other. Hajara says salam, Kabir says salam, and Ali says salam. And Home Inspiration says treatment of son-in-laws is always different and more pleasant compared to daughter-in-laws in a lot of cultures.
I agree with that.
We'll talk about that.
We will talk about all of that. So in the book that we are using this book as a foundation for our conversation, Ajmal's book of 10 steps of getting and staying married.
I think people have forgotten to buy this book.
You can buy the book, you can purchase on our website.
Actually, our website.
There's a link on the link.
Our website is up and running, actually, ladies and gentlemen. I've got, of course, my own website there. That's fine. But you can also go to Barefoot Institute's website.
And you can purchase the book. You can also buy my book, which I will introduce a little bit later.
Barefootinstitute.com.
But let's talk about intercultural marriages. So this is a chapter in Partnership in the Making. It's a conversation we started last week, and we introduced you some of the basic key components of what partnership looks like in the making for marriages. And we got a lot of requests talking about intercultural marriages, and we are a living example of that. We thought we would like to bring this into the conversation as well. So we've got questions, we've got ideas, but let's look at what intercultural marriages actually mean and what are the things we need to have before we embark on it. Or if you're already married, what are the things that you need to improve on to make your relationship better?
So number one, you need to be culturally pluralistic. What do I mean by that? Your spouse will have different cultural expressions to yours. If you cannot accept the validity of his or her culture, then intercultural marriage is not for you. So for example, your cultural expressions in Hungarian, or in my cultural expression in the Bengali culture, any culture that we both have, I must give you the right, and you must give me the right to have the full expression of my culture if I wish to. If I limit it, if I look down upon your culture, if you look down upon mine, if I think yours is inferior and mine is superior, intercultural marriage is not for me.
No.
As simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. If you think your culture must dominate, then intercultural marriage is not for you.
And this is for all of the people, and I speak only for the revert and convert community that I know. I remember when I got married, not very long after, we had a group of Hungarian sisters who were all married to different cultures, and we were all married to somebody from a different cultural background, and we used to get together having conversations about marriage, Islam, generally, we studied together, learned together. And after a very short period of time, we realized that every one of us' interpretation of Islam was very closely tied to the culture that we were married into. So what I say to people is that understanding your own culture and what you want to use from that culture is your responsibility. I need to understand what I like about my Hungarian culture, and if it's not in contradiction with Islam, then I can choose, and I choose to practice or not. And you do the same with your culture. And the interesting bit about this is, how do you put this together? How do you make it a partnership instead of a battlefield? You do this, I did that, it's about, but firstly, you need to really understand, what do you like about your culture? What do you want to keep? And is it in contradiction with the Islamic values that you want to create within your family? If you have a contradiction, of course, you have conversations.
Somebody asked, how do you resolve differences from different cultures who believe women should dress in a certain way? Well, I've got an answer for this. Sheikh Abdullah Judai, a very, very good scholar, one of the best scholars we have in Europe today. He's the Grand Sheikh of the Grand Mosque of Leeds. Anyway, his wife is white English, and he's Iraqi originally. So the local Iraqi community came and complained to him, saying, Sheikh, your wife is not dressing properly. She's not dressed up in Islamic manner. Sheikh Abdullah Judai said, what kind of dress is she wearing? So they said, she's wearing English clothes. Sheikh Abdullah Judai said, is she covered? Yes, she's covered. Head is covered? Yes. Her body is covered? Yes. You can't see anything in her body? No. What's the problem? Well, she's not dressing up like the Iraqis should do. That's what the Iraqi community said. Sheikh Abdullah Judai said something very beautiful. He said, my wife is white English. She's from England. Why would she dress up like Iraqi woman? And that's a profound statement from one of the greatest sheikh we have at our time today.
Because it's about embracing a culture fully.
Embracing a religious value. That's what she has done as a Muslim.
But Abdullah Judai embracing a culture.
Oh, he is not embracing the culture. He's saying his wife has every right to embrace any culture she wants. If she has come from an English background, why should we Asians or Arabs impose our dress code over her? As long as she's dressed up properly, she's not walking around naked or showing her body parts or being ostentatious or being lewd in her clothing, whether it is Asian clothing or Arab clothing or English clothing, doesn't matter. She's covered. Why are you complaining? So imposition of your dress code, shalwar kameez for example, or an Arab abaya or a sari, which is a foreign cultural expression, why would you do that thinking that is the Islamic clothes? It is not Islamic to wear shalwar kameez, by the way. Yes, shalwar kameez is a cultural expression of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. For that culture, this is beautiful. No problem, please go ahead.
And I love it. I have some as well.
Yeah, everyone's clothing is their own cultural expression. As long as it's not contradicting the essence of covering, it's Islamic. Don't say one is more Islamic than the other, because it is not correct. Let's go back to it. All of us are struggling. Salam Bhai, can you elaborate marriage of Sunnah? Some sisters passing the marriage age due to high expectations on the groom. We'll talk about that another time. MashaAllah, brother Ajmal made a good point about Muslima's dress code. Well, I didn't. It's not my point. It's one of our greatest sheikhs' point. That cultural dress code isn't the only Islamic dress that you have to wear. You can wear any dress you like as long as it conforms to an Islamic norm of modesty. So please don't impose a cultural norm on somebody else, because by being culturally pluralistic, you're accepting your partners, your wives, your husbands' cultural expressions in food, in dress, in festivities, in activities, and everything else. Please go do number 2. I've done number 1.
Number 2, you need to be extremely patient. Oh, Allah landed this thing on my lap. This is not my strong point, but here it goes. Your spouse's cultural quirks may irritate, offend, or anger you. Being married to someone who is culturally different to you requires the utmost patience. Any impatient racial outburst would undo your abilities to respect your spouse's culture. So here it goes. What is very important about this is that marriage...
Have you done the patient bit?
I am talking about it still.
Carry on.
So marriage requires a lot of patience.
Because
in
you've
normal
gone to
circumstances,
yes.
between two people from the same culture, marriage is a ground for patience. But when you are interculturally married, it requires double, triple the effort.
Can I give you an example? In Bangladeshi culture...
You're not very patient with me finishing this sentence, are
No,
you?
this is something that you triggered in me just as soon as you said that. In Bangladeshi culture, men shouting and screaming to establish their dominance is normal. Very normal.
Just talking loud is normal.
No, talking loud. Talking loud is not even a discussion. I'm talking about aggressively talking or shouting and screaming at everybody to establish their authority. That's the cultural norm for Bangladeshis.
Right.
Okay? That's not the cultural norm within the Hungarians.
Europeans or...
I'm talking about you now.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, somebody's drunk. But even within being drunk, most people are not loud and not shouting and screaming. Now, this could pose a huge problem. I have to be conscious of not mimicking that cultural norm in my space with you, with your space.
But by nature, you are not that. You're not... By nature, you are passionate, but you're not loud.
Some people think even if you're not loud, you have to be loud at home. Otherwise, nobody will respect you. That's what I'm talking about.
No, but what I understand that, but I also am saying is that if by nature and some of these things, the cultural expressions people take on without thinking, that is it in alignment with my nature? Am I loud by nature, or am I more on the quiet side? Because when people take this on as a cultural expression, it's not their own expression. They are not in alignment. So
Learned behavior.
Yeah, you learn the behavior, but you don't think about it. So be conscious. This is one of the things that I'm learning as well continuously, is that I have to be very conscious of what is my nature and what is my culture, that is my culture is imposing on me. And am I taking it willingly, or am I just doing it because I'm mindless? You know, the state of rafla, that when we are mindless, we are not mindful of why we choose something and what we do. So always be careful of, is it really your true nature? Is it your soul expression, or you just picked up a cultural expression because everyone else is doing it around you? It's very easy to pick it up.
So being patient around it is that if you are quieter and I'm louder because of our cultural upbringing and it's a learned behavior, I have to be tolerant of your quiet nature, and you have to be tolerant of my louder nature without me infringing on you or you infringing on me. So as long as I'm not being aggressive, abusive, you have to understand, oh, okay, that's his cultural expression. Sometimes I'll tolerate it. You're quiet. I have to accept the fact that you are like that. I have to be patient about it.
I can be loud if you want.
I don't necessarily think you are.
Change.
No, but you're not like that as a person. So respecting your culture requires a lot of patience, not just you as a person, but what you bring with it. I find quite funny certain things you guys do in Hungarian context. But I have to be extremely patient and not do anything about it. For example, sitting around the dinner table and eating for hours and hours. Within my cultural upbringing, we don't do that. We eat and we go. Eat is a function. whereas Eid for you is part of a celebration.
It's social for us.
Yeah.
It's
And I don't necessarily enjoy that, but I have tolerated it. I've been patient about it. All those small quirks, but very important ones.
Right.
Number 3, you need to be racially neutral. This is probably the trickiest thing in an intercultural marriage. Which culture is better, superior, or more deserving of your attention is a question fraught with cultural minefields. When you are in an intercultural marriage, your default position is unbiased and impartial, should be actually. You should accept your spouse's culture as equally valid. In other words, which side do you take when it comes to culture? Which side do you take, Hungarian or Bengali?
I don't take any culture actually.
And this is a good thing about both of us, that we have both learned an amazing behavior, and that is that we are culturally neutral. I don't mind what culture we both bring to this space, but culturally not racist, culturally not biased is what I celebrate.
Yeah, we had this argument, I think, amongst us probably a year ago. My mother got really offended, and she started saying all sorts of things about how rude and how this and that. And I know that she wouldn't have done this unless she was really offended. This is not part of our culture that well, my mother is not that kind of a person who would come and complain. But I didn't take her side because culturally I should take my mother's side. Obviously that's what all daughters do. But I didn't take her side because she was wrong in what she was doing. And I didn't take my husband's side, but I didn't take my mother's side either, because culturally it just made no sense to me.
Same goes for Bangladeshis, Asians, and any other, that you automatically take the sides of your parents or your own culture. Cultural neutrality in a relationship, such as an intercultural relationship is so important. Otherwise, your relationship is going to run aground. Let's go to the next one.
You need to be broad-minded. When people think about broad-mindedness, they usually think about people who are open-minded, liberal, tolerant, and forward-thinking. Broad-mindedness in the context of intercultural marriage is all of the above and more. You have to be willing to explore your spouse's culture, even if you find it uncomfortable. You have to demonstrate respect, even if you disagree with it. So I always kind of have this image about this, is that when you add something or take something or something that makes you uncomfortable from another person's culture, you are adding an element to your own personality. It can only give you good. And this is one of the reasons I never find it difficult to pick up any language wherever I am. So when I was in Egypt, I picked up Arabic and Egyptian dialect because that's what I felt, that it helps me to connect with people, and it opens up the doors for connection. That's one of the reasons why I started learning at the very beginning. I started learning Bengali. I had no common language with my mother-in-law. I remember we were getting married. She was looking at the map of where Hungary was because she didn't even know that there was a country called Hungary. But my way of respecting the difference is to actually say, well, what harm does it make that if I pick up a couple of Bengali verses and I use them for basic functions? So we can make a basic conversation on the phone. I can listen to her and I can ask how she is, what she cooked, where did she go today, what was the shopping like. So for that basic function, I learned the language not because I wanted to please, it's because I thought that was an opening. So those of you who are fighting with this, because I know a lot of people do, don't look at it as you have to do it because it's a compulsion. No, you want to do it because it opens up something for connection.
Language is a beautiful gift from Allah. The more you learn, the more relationship you build. Have you ever gone to a foreign country and you have introduced yourself as a foreigner, and you threw in the conversation a couple of key words in their own language? How pleased those people become. Yeah. They cheer you, they clap, they offer you food. When you go to a country and you show that you're interested, it's the same with your parents-in-law. It's the same with your spouse. So broad-mindedness means I should be willing to wear my wife's family's cultural clothes if that's what
Lucky we don't have one.
I don't think you have one. Of course, I should be prepared to eat their cultural food as long as it's halal. I can tell them. Broad-minded means I should not be foolish. And I remember you told me that a Muslim guy came to your house once, long before we got married, and he insisted that his food should be cooked in a separate pot, which has not been ever used for cooking pork, and he should be given completely brand new forks and knives, utensils, so that he could eat them. Remember that conversation we had?
Yeah.
And I was appalled because that guy, forget about being broad-minded, he was just exaggerating, simple exaggeration. Even if you're on your hand, if something haram falls, once you clean it, it's clean. You don't have to chop your hand off. In a pot, it's the same thing. Broad-mindedness means embracing your spouse openly, embracing your spouse's culture openly, embracing the cultural expressions of your spouse openly, and being happy and willing to try them as long as they're halal.
Well, also just to say that in language is actually such a powerful tool that we have a saying in my culture is that the more languages you speak, the more personalities you have. It adds layers to your expressions, layers to your perceptions of the world. You know, when you travel, it just opens up everything. You know, once we go back to travel in 2021, hopefully. But it's all about connecting. And those of you who are in intercultural marriages have been in for a long time, and you either speak the language or you have never been interested, open your mind and open your possibilities for connection by having those conversations in a different language.
Inshallah. Let's read some more messages. Abdul Muhid Ali says, there are differences in interceleti culture too. Yes, of course. Certain derogatory comments made by certain families around words used or practices that may look odd, dare I say offensive. This annoys me. As for these words sound offensive, given I bought into this, how do I reconcile this as my wife in her family's company used certain words that I didn't like, but she adjusts this a little when in my family company? I'm assuming cultural quirks that they throw, family vocabularies that they throw that you immediately translate and become offended.
It happens to us all the time. It happens to me all the time. I get offended by certain expressions, and then it took me some time to understand that it's not intended, and I'm hoping it's not intended. But if it is intended, then we have a conversation and make it very clear that I don't want this expression to be used.
But don't get too offended, because everything isn't intentional. There are cultural conversations two people are having. So if I got offended by everything that you and your mother and you are having, I'll be dead. I just ignore. I just turn my ears off, my eyes blind. I let you. Have I ever, in our 20 years marriage, complained about one thing that your mother or you have said, even if I've understood that I was offended? I don't think I have. Because I tell you, small things don't offend me. People's cultural quirks don't offend me. Let them. If they intend, then I will know. They don't intend, let it go.
But also, just bear in mind that if these expressions are going against the very core principle of perhaps decency or within the perimeters of Islam, and that's not something that you can sign up for, then you have every right to
just
request,
talk about it.
Talk about this, discuss it, and request that, look, this is not something that
So
I welcome in my conversations.
In our family, we talked about it and we agreed there will be no more backbiting. No backbiting. If you got an issue, talk to the person directly. So far, so good. It works. So you need to create that family bond and boundary. Victoria Matesky says, absolutely true. Henrietta Savati about reverts or Western borns
practicing closely related to their spouse's culture. We must be mindful to embrace Islam in our unique way and not lose our identity. Absolutely. It's really about looking at the idea of how do you enhance your personality and relationship by intercultural marriage, but not blend into it to such an extent that your identity is disappeared. We don't understand what Islam actually stands for, because cultures are very strong, but Islam is stronger.
There is a second question which is even very important. How do you find the balance between human values and cultural values, logistics? That's a beautiful question. Human values are all the same. Universally the same. We all like to be loved, cherished, accepted, respected. We don't like lying, backbiting, slandering, murdering. These are human values. They're same. You have to keep those above your cultural ones. Your cultural ones are supplementary, complementary to the human values, because ultimately Allah has created all of us as humans. That's what unites us.
And I'm guessing it might be also a generational thing, because our children are growing up, and children growing up of the older generation of Asian or European or whatever background, the cultural expressions are going to be very different, and it causes intergenerational problems.
And
So
so
this is why human values are very important, because when you teach honesty, when you teach justice, when you teach the big values, no matter where they go and what they do, they will have to abide by those rules because it's going to be part of their soul.
Sweetie Pie says, thank you for mentioning the Sheikh's point. Of course, halal police. Oh,
Halal police sister.
and the sister next to you is not wearing correct hijab of Islam. May Allah guide you, my dear halal police sister. May Allah give your eyes better ways of looking. Kabir, Ghafoor, brother Ajmal. Patience, brother Ajmal, thank you. Sabina Saif, haha, Ajmal, please let your wife speak. Don't interrupt. I'm really sorry if I did that. Halal police again. Where can I order your book, Akhi? I couldn't find it in Google like Amazon. We don't do Google, brother. I'm just joking. Go to our website, barefootinstitute.com/book. Bookstore, actually, you'll find it. Hajara can't pronounce her name. What's that? Jeanette, I think. Jeanette. Okay. In all Muslims,
majority countries, men want to be men, so they rise their tones.
You don't have to be rising your tone to be a man.
I don't know which country she is talking
Whichever
about,
country you come from. You don't have to be a man and raise your tone. Yes, it is true. We have a louder vocal cord. It is true. Woman has a softer vocal cord.
Oh, you haven't met some of the women I know.
No, I don't. In terms of projection, I can project my voice a lot further than a woman can. Now, I'm saying generally speaking, not specifically speaking. That does not mean I have to exercise that in the house. You can hear me quite well. If you can't hear me, then I'll have to raise my voice. But if you can hear me, why do I need to shout?
I think it comes down to intention of why do we use loud voice in the first place. It's about intentionality.
Okay, Fatima Chowdhury says, erring isn't a function. What? In our culture. In fact, it's, I don't understand. Fatima Chowdhury says eating. Eating.
Oh, eating.
Sorry for the time. It is true. No, eating is a function in our culture. Or in my family anyway. Sorry, I don't mean it generically for everybody. But in my family culture, I said that we have grown up eating quickly and going.
So it's a functional thing for you just to do it.
But remember, it's not a universal culture.
No,
I didn't say that for Bengalis. I just said it's about my family. You have your own family culture. I don't think every Hungarian wants necessarily eat for hours.
Sit around and talk, yeah. Something what I found is the need of understanding each other's etiquettes of family level of involvement when deciding to marry. Yes, it's a couple of things that you're mentioning here is that etiquette of a family level of involvement. Oh, how do we involve other people in when we are getting married? Who do we listen to? Who I'm guessing that's what
or the other
is
one
referring to.
Family interference.
Interference, yeah.
A cultural expression from the Asian community
is very different from
the Europeans.
The European.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
The in-laws, the extended family interference within the European context is a lot less than the Asian cultural interference. I know that. We have all lived with it, but you can actually negotiate your way forward.
So what are the terms of negotiation? Because this is one of the things that comes to us very often from couples, that how do I create my family, my ethos, how do I create what's important to my family our family as a context, without having constantly fighting off or fending off what comes from the outside, family influence and interference. So what is your...
A Christian priest once gave a speech, and I remember listening to her. She said, my son-in-law and my daughter have moved into my house now, after having lived on their own for 10 years. But before they moved in, I sat with them and I said, my dear daughter and my dear son, before you move in, I would love you to move in with me. I love your company, but we need to draw up a contract. She literally drew up a contract for her daughter and son-in-law, what terms and conditions, what ground rules would work for them. And they've been living together like this for 20 years with very little problem. A mature, educated, and pluralistic families would draw up contracts. So if you are going to be living with your in-laws or have extended families within your home space, you need contract. Cultural interference or interference with from the family is a major hurdle. A lot of families break up because of that. The only way we can overcome it is minimize the cultural interference. So mum and dad, I can understand. My mum, my dad, your dad, I can understand that. They have every right to make their suggestions. But I also need to tell my mum and my dad, may Allah have mercy on our dad's souls, that I'm so sorry, you can only suggest, but you can't impose on my wife. You can impose on me, I'm your son. Suggest to her, and if she disagrees, then she disagrees. The same goes, I believe, in your case. You need to tell your mum, you can insist on me on anything, but you can't do the same. I'm willing, as a son-in-law, to listen to my mother and my mother-in-law. If she wants me to do something, I'll do it. But if she demands like my mother does, I may react. And that, unfortunately, you can't do anything about. That's called human reaction. So it's about learning how to negotiate that. It's about how to create a space that works with respect and integrity.
And don't forget, this takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It takes time, conscious effort, over and over again, then renegotiation, because it's a change for those of them and who are interfering, or you perceive it as an interference. It's a change, and change always takes time.
A lot of time.
A long time. Very
A long time.
Let's
Hold
go
on.
to the next one. We are running out of
it's
time.
okay. Maria said, sorry, 1 second. Something important I have found is the need for understanding each other's etiquettes of family level.
We just talked about this.
Correct. And then Sweetie Pie says we need to be fair and open-minded, accept two people with two cultures and respect one another. Very true. Halal says, yeah, learn the language of your spouse. Thank you. Suma Deen says, interesting to hear your practical steps, Hannah. And my dear, you are patient, very patient, alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Suma.
And she had to be extra patient with me. It isn't what our Prophet has taught, being aggressive towards spouse. Me and my husband, we are different from different countries. I was raised in France, Algerian, him from Sri Lanka.
How interesting.
He's been the most respectful man. He's got example as he was patient and loving towards our children and myself. He's patient and know Allah's rewards. When I think my mum said, why him from abroad? I said, he's a Muslim, isn't that enough? Alhamdulillah, now nearly 20 years, and alhamdulillah, 4 beautiful children. Beautiful
nice story. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you. So we don't have much time left. We don't want to make it too long, but we've got a couple of more points to make. One of them is, in intercultural marriages, you need to be accepting. There's a huge difference between tolerance and acceptance. While the former is associated with power, the later is accepted as more meaningful. Tolerance is often conditional, while acceptance is unconditional. In intercultural marriages, you have to be accepting of your spouse's culture. You have to accept his or her right to be proud of their culture, and if they wish to partake in cultural activities, you have to facilitate that for them. You have the right to challenge a cultural practice if it contradicts an essential element of your faith. This is the time to talk about this. It's Christmas. There are a lot of people who are Muslims, converts, who have non-Muslim Christmas celebrating families. What do? Do we leave the parents at home by themselves? And I'm giving you my own example. My mother is alone at the moment with my brother, but my mother is not. My father passed away 15 years ago. May Allah have mercy on him. But she's alone, and every Christmas we try to make an effort for her to come and stay with us at the time of Christmas. We don't have a Christmas tree because this is not something that we would like to do, but we have a dinner, we help her celebrate in a way that we can facilitate. And I know so many people who contact me and say, my husband is vehement against this, I can't even call my parents, I can't send them cards, I can't give them gifts. There is an animosity around this, and I think we need to become people of compassion. We need to understand that there are our faith teaches us to be patient and compassionate to people, and this is one of the things. Christmas is one of the things that brings us this difference in culture.
I remember in a mosque once I was giving a talk, a brother said you should never allow your non-Muslim cultures to come into your home, and then he quoted a verse of the Quran. One of the verses, which is a verse of a war, that you should sit in ambush when the enemies are about to attack you, blah, blah, blah. So I said, you want me to wait in ambush for my mother-in-law? She's non-Muslim. You want me to attack her? He started scratching his head. He goes, well, it doesn't apply to you. I said, stop being stupid about this. Stop being absolutely irrational. Quran and the Sunnah, our beloved Prophet ﷺ's life is full of compassion and mercy. Allah called him the most merciful person. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Muhammad, you're nothing but a mercy to the entire universe. But there is nothing in Islam more merciful. Did you know in the Deobandi schools, Deobandi school of thought, there is a fatwa available from the Indian scholars who have said giving good wishes, food, and greetings to your Hindu neighbors is part of our Islamic culture. This is in India by Muslims of Indian background. I think people have forgotten that such a tolerant understanding and open understanding it was there. Just to finish off, we need to be inclusive and we need to be open and broad-minded in our life with intercultural marriages. Whatever you're doing, brothers and sisters, if you are very stuck with your culture, if you're insistent on yours being better than the others, then intercultural marriage is not for you.
Yes. So that's the end of the conversation, I guess. So you can read more about this in the book, in Ajmal's book that you can purchase on our website, barefootinstitute.com or ajmalmasroor.com/book. You can also send us some questions, send us some ideas, some reflections that you might have had from this session that we were talking about intercultural marriages, and please share the video with anyone who you might think would benefit from this conversation. We will carry on, and I guess this is our last one for 2020. So
oh, it is, yes, last
next
one.
time we will see you in 2021
2021.
on the other side. We will do it on a Sunday, so please come and join us. Recommend us to anyone who might be interested in having these more mature conversations about relationships. And
I'm modeling your book.
You're modeling my book. So I have also written a book 5 years ago called Heart Smart, which is more to do with a journey that we take from our head to our heart. It's out with a new face cover. I got a facelift for the book. You can get it through me directly from Facebook.
No,
you
but
can
it's
send
available.
a message, and you can also go on our website, barefootinstitute.com
/bookstore.
Bookstore. Yes, you will find it in the bookstore section. Ajmal's book as well as my book. You can purchase it directly, and we will post it as soon as we get your order.
Brothers and sisters, if you're married interculturally, fantastic, enjoy more. And I celebrate more intercultural marriages. I don't like racially biased, prejudicial, closed-minded, narrow-minded Muslim families. I don't like that. That's not Islam. That's our problem stemming from ignorance. May Allah bless you all. May Allah protect you. Please don't forget to buy the books and make dua for us. Until next year, from myself and my wife. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.